The following clip is from Patterns of Evidence, Exodus. For more information, go to patternsofevidence.com.
It became obvious to me and my team that if people look at the wrong time in history for evidence of the Exodus, they won't find any. So Ramesses is a giant, standing in the way of connecting this evidence with the Exodus. And for over 50 years, all the books, all the television programs, and all the university professors who've been convincing the world to dismiss the Bible have been doing so based mainly on this one issue, chronology, the dates assumed for the Exodus, and the lack of evidence at the time of Ramesses II. But if it happened long before his time, then it means they're all wrong. Wrong about the Pharaoh, and perhaps wrong about the Exodus never happening.
Roll took Mahoney to see the replica of a monument erected just a few years after Ramesses' death by his son, Merenta. It's important because it shows that Ramesses could not be the Pharaoh of the Exodus, because in his time, Israel was already a nation, established in the land of Canaan.
So this is the famous Merenta stela, or what we call the Israel stela. And it actually belongs to the king Merenta. Up there at the top you can see him facing the god Ammon, and he lists in a poetic form all the different conquered nations, the nations that are at peace. But right at the bottom we have three crucial lines, because this is where we find a link to the Bible. Let's read it together, okay? We have two reeds. That's the sound ye or I, okay? Then a bolt, which is S, an R, a mouth, an E, an A, and an L. Israel. 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 This is the only time that we see this name on an Egyptian monument. After the name Israel, there are these two figures here, these two seated figures of a woman and a man, and three strokes underneath. These three strokes mean plural. So it means the people or nation of Israel. And then this is the interesting bit. It says, Fekti bin Peret eth. Israel is laid waste, his seed is no more.
Well, does it mean they were literally no more?
No, it's a sort of poetical way of saying they've been overcome, defeated.
Or pacified?
All these phrases here are like that. It's a poetical phrase, effectively.
How significant is this then to the story of the Exodus?
Well, for me it's very important, because if we're talking about Ramesses II or Merenta being at the time of the Exodus of Moses and Joshua, this just does not fit the pattern. It's not tribes wandering around the Sinai lost in the desert, or, during the wandering periods of Moses and Joshua. They seem to be a political entity.
This monument doesn't fit the idea of Ramesses being the Pharaoh of the Exodus because it was written shortly after his death. And it recognizes Israel already existing in Canaan as one of the significant powers of the day. And that shouldn't be. Because the Bible says that the Israelites did not even begin to conquer Canaan until 40 years after the Exodus. So Ramesses could not have been the Pharaoh who let the Israelites go. Then Mahoney got a lead about another inscription. Charles Ayling brought him to see his colleague, historian Clyde Billington, who has extensively researched this newly discovered find.
Besides the Merenta stela, there's another reference to Israel. It's called the Berlin pedestal. It's in the State Museum in Berlin, Germany, and this is something that's just now being studied and discussed by scholars.
On the base of this Egyptian statue, they showed Mahoney name rings, each representing an enemy defeated by Pharaoh in the region of Canaan.
So would these have been captured people?
Realize that pharaohs all the time exaggerate, to say the very least.
So is he bragging?
He's bragging.
Okay.
He's bragging. He's saying, I've conquered these people, I control these people. This is the one that's caused all of the excitement because you have, again, a bound enemy. So telling you that these people are enemies of the Egyptians. And the name down here, that while it's partially broken away, has been reconstructed, and it's the name Israel. And this dates to around 1360. This makes the late date of the Exodus an impossibility. This is 100 years earlier.
This is very crucial evidence that we see here.
This name ring demonstrates that Israel had already left Egypt and was in Canaan as Egypt's enemy a century before the Ramesses Exodus date. So obviously, Ramesses could not have been the pharaoh of the Exodus. As another test to see whether Ramesses really was the pharaoh of the Exodus, Mahoney would need to find out if there were any signs of major problems during this famous king's reign, such as a sudden collapse of power that would match the biblical judgment of Egypt.
I don't see any evidence that during the reign of Ramesses II there was a significant decline in the strength of the army, in the economic well-being of the country. I don't see anything in the succeeding reign of Mer-Neptah either.
So you're saying there's some type of stability that was formed?
There was a great deal of stability during this period, had to have been for a lot of these things to have occurred.
But there's more. It came to my attention that the Bible itself contains a passage that's been largely ignored. It gives a date for the Exodus hundreds of years before Pharaoh Ramesses ruled. Yet it clearly says it was 480 years from the building of Solomon's temple back to the time of the Exodus.
Most scholars agree that King Solomon began his reign in 970 BC. So 480 years before this would place the Exodus around 1450 BC, 200 years before the Ramesses date. Yet the popular view continues to be that the Exodus occurred in the time of Ramesses.
It's a date that is based on very flimsy indicators, but this is where the majority of scholars look, almost out of habit, really. Earlier periods have just dropped off their radar.
And would you say that's the bottom line, why they don't find any evidence for the Bible?
I would, and I find it deeply ironic.